Donc, rebonjour, bon après-midi. Comme on l'avait annoncé, donc le début de l'après-midi était réservé à une conférence qui nous est donnée aujourd'hui par notre invité extérieur qui a assisté à vos restitutions ce matin et qui va visiter l'expo avec nous et avec vous cet après-midi, qui est M.Agostino De Rosa, qui est professeur de l'Université Iuav de Venise, qui va nous présenter, qui va nous faire une conférence autour d'un projet dont il a fait partie, un projet très long, qui est le projet du Roden Crater aux États-Unis de James Turell. Donc voilà, Agostino va nous faire un peu un cadre du projet, va nous parler un petit peu du projet et va nous montrer un peu quelques aspects particuliers de ce long projet de construction.
Merci.
Thank you, Agostino.
Merci. Sorry, I speak English or Italian, but I think it's better in English, I think. So thank you very much, Emma. Thank you very much, Francesca, for the invitation at this amazing seminar. As Emma said just a few seconds ago, I'm a full professor at University of Venice, but my academic history is a little bit strange because I teach descriptive geometry, history and theory of representational methods, drawing, history of science from the beginning of my career. But in my life, I decided to follow my masters. When I recognized the presence of a master in my life, I decided always to reach him, to ask him to work with him or her, and to follow him or her in some project. So today I present to you a very brief description of a very strange, amazing project located in a very remote corner of northern Arizona. The place is Painted Desert. The name say everything. It's a desert. It's a special desert. I'll try to describe the place for you and to introduce the inner life of this project from the beginning. So I met the author of this project, James Archibald Turell, many years ago when I was young, like you probably. I was doing my doctorate, my PhD. The first year of my PhD was in Japan, working with a very famous at that time architect, Tadao Ando. I worked with him for almost 1 year, working about a book about the representation of shade and shadow in traditional representation in China and Japan, and also about his work. And the second half of my PhD was in California, in Southern California. So during my stay in California, I saw a very strange exhibition, a monographic exhibition devoted to the entire work of James Turell. This is the man, James Turell. He was born in 1943. When I visited for the first time the exhibition devoted to James Turell in California at LACMA Museum in Los Angeles, I was astonished. For me, it was an apocalypse. I don't know if you have studied ancient Greek, but the original term in Greek, ancient Greek, for apocalypse is apokalypsis. It means revelation. For me, it was a revelation to enter inside the museum and do the experience of the installation by James Turell, made by light. So my idea about architecture, about the space, about the time, about the representation, about everything changed completely. So for me, it was a sort of apocalypse in my life. So before to explain what is the characteristic of James Turell work, is use of light, natural light, the light of the stars, the light of the sun, the light of the moon, but also artificial light, every kind of artificial lights. I'd like to tell you a brief fairy tale. So now we are relaxed, you have finished your workshop, so we can do something more easy. But James Turell said to me that he knew perfectly when he was conceived by his relatives. 9 months before his birth date, in 1943, because it happened something strange in the sky of Southern California in 1942. Everything is certified by the newspaper of the time that describe the events I'm trying to describe to you. In the sky of Pasadena and Los Angeles, suddenly, at the beginning of a day, appeared in the sky some strange light in the sky. They were flying in the sky. Someone spoke about UFO, unidentified flying object in the sky of Southern California. You have to remember in your mind that was 1942. So the USA government feared the presence, the attack of Japanese aircraft to the coast of California. So the USA aircraft decided to attack this strange flying light object in the sky. 2 soldiers, 2 American soldiers died during this event. And as the object, the luminous object, appeared in the sky at dawn, they disappeared at dusk. So everything is documented in the Los Angeles Times of that period and other newspaper magazine who described the event in a very strange way. So according to James Turell, it was conceived in that day under the sign of light in the sky. As consequence of this strange apparition of light in the sky of California, the USA government decided to emit a law, a federal law, imposing to protect the coastline of California from eventually attacks from Japan, from the aircraft, Japanese aircraft, obliging the people who living on the coast, on the coastline, to close the windows and the veranda. So the artificial source of light disposable along the coast with heavy velvet black curtain to avoid to transform the windows or the veranda along the coast in lighthouses, a sort of call for the enemy, for the Japanese enemy. So also the veranda of James Turell's father was decorated with these heavy velvet black curtains. And when James Turell began to go at the primary school, he studied also astronomy at the beginning of his scholar curriculum. And coming back at his home, he began to open some strange holes of different sides in the black curtain decorating his veranda. At the beginning, his father and his mother didn't pay attention to the young children, but after a few weeks, all the curtains were full of holes of different sides and located in different disposition, configuration in the space. So the mother of James Turell asked to the young Jim, "What are you doing?" And he answered, "Mama, I studied astronomy at school, and the professor explained to us that the stars are disposed in constellations. And each star in a constellation has different size. It depends from his, what the professor said, named the magnitudo, the magnitude of a star, the dimension of the star. So I'm constructing here in our veranda a stellarium, a representation of the starry sky during the day." Yes, because in this installation, the first installation designed by James Turell in his life, he was able to represent on the Earth what is impossible to see during the day, the stars. But for him, it was possible because the velvet black curtain give the possibility to the young children to represent and to project the starry sky on the Earth. In my opinion, and also in the opinion of James Turell, this is the first installation designed by James Turell, who was interested at the beginning of his career. He attended the high school, followed also the university for several months, but at the end of his academic experience, he decided to become an artist. The first works of art by James Turell are skywriting with his airplane. He's a perfect, very, very fine pilot. He was able to write in the sky long lines, poems, guided from the earth by one of his friends, the painter Sam Francis. But he was involved very young in an international project named Art and Technology, in which the USA government asked to the young artists of USA to collaborate with industries for several artistic and scientific projects. So, for example, on the East Coast of the United States, Andy Warhol decided to collaborate with an industry of colors for this project. And James Turell decided to collaborate on the West Coast with the Garrett Aerospace Corporation, a company who in general designed space shuttle. So this experience was very important for him because he began to study some phenomenon clearly perceivable in the sky at high altitude or in the sidereal space, but not on the Earth. So he decided to rent an abandoned hotel not so far from Los Angeles, the Mendota Hotel, to paint the interior of the hotel in titanium white, rounding the corner, the vertical, horizontal corners of the building, the interior corners of the building, and creating his first installations. This is the drawing of one of his most famous and early installations. The name is Afroom. It would be necessary an entire lecture to explain the title of James Turell installation. But in general, the inspiration becomes from science fiction or from religion, because James Turell is Quaker. His mother was a Quaker, and also his grandmother was Quaker, and they transmitted to the young children this faith. I don't know if you know the Quaker religion, but it was developed during the 17th century in England and reached also the USA with the migration of the European citizen toward the Americas. And it is based on the apparition of the words of God through the light. So the recommendation of the mother and grandmother of James Turell when he had to come to the meeting of friends, this is the name of the mass for the Quaker, was go to the friends and greet the light. So this motto is a sort of anthem for the entire career of James Turell. This is the drawing of one of his first installations named Afroom. What are you looking at? We recognize the presence of a dark chamber in which, suspended to a corner, near a corner, there is a luminous cube, solid cube. This is the photo of this installation, but there is no cube, there is no object, there is no focus, there is no image. Because this is not a luminous cube, but is the projection of a slide, metal slide, projected with a hole in the middle in hexagonal shape. So the light passes through the hole and projects on the two surfaces, converging in the corner, creating the illusion of a cube. When you move in the room, reaching the structure, the lines, the contour lines of the object moves with your body, and you have the perception that the cube is deformed in perspective, but there is no cube. There is no object. There is no focus. There is nothing, only light. this is why I spoke at the beginning of my speech as revelation. Another very interesting installation by James Turell, developed in the Mendota Hotel, was the so-called sky space. It's a space, a room, a chamber, with a skylight opened in the ceiling. If the room is in a shape of square, the opening, the hole will be a square, and so on. If the shape of the plan will be elliptic, the opening, the upper opening will be elliptical. But the opening is cut in the ceiling in a very strange way. So the cutting plane for the opening is inclined at 45 degrees. So for the observer, the beholder inside the room, it's impossible to perceive the thickness of the roof. So what happens when you are inside this room? Some very strange things. So the first thing that happens is that you perceive the sky that close the opening. So the sky is not far, but it's very close to you. As counter-reaction in our perception of the space, we feel the sensation to levitate, to flight. You have to try, guys, you have to try. There are a lot of installations of James Turell all around Europe. Now I think there is, at the Gagosian Gallery here outside Paris, there is an exhibition devoted to James Turell. There are some installations, not this one, but other installations by James Turell. So please visit, because always is an experience to enter inside James Turell installation. So if you look at the furniture inside the room, you recognize a bench, which has its back slightly inclined to invite you to observe the sky. So it's very strange to stay inside this place, in this room, because you have the sensation that everything crosses the opening, for example, a cloud or a bird, you have the possibility to touch the object, because it's very close to you. And you have, in the meantime, the sensation to fly. It's an illusion. But if you perceive this illusion, for James Turell, it's enough. It's real for him. So probably you are very lucky because you live in Paris. In Paris, worked and studied René Descartes. René Descartes wrote during the 17th century, the first half of 17th century, a treatise about the man, the Traité de l'Homme. I don't know if I've pronounced it correct. But in this treatise, René Descartes described how the visual perception, he said in the treatise that the sight is the king of the senses. But exactly because it's the king or the queen, I don't know exactly how to describe this position by Descartes, is easy also to obtain some fake perception from the vision. Sometimes Descartes described in his treatise that it's possible to touch with the sight, and it's possible to see with the touch. So a sort of synesthesia experience, synesthetic experience described in the 17th century that in the James Turell's installation is very clear. It's plastic, it's three-dimensional. So the very strange things that happens, and other strange things that happens inside this sky space, celestial espace, I tried to do some photographs during the day, but this is from night to dawn. And the second part of my photos of this installation is from dawn toward night? No. At the 3 p.m. Yeah. 3:30, 4 o'clock. What happens? It happens some very strange things, but scientific explicable. In the rear part of the back of the bench are located some neon lights. always open during the day, but the simultaneous contrast at a certain hour, around 3:30 p.m., 4 p.m., permit to you to observe the interior space in light, but the exterior space as a black velvet curtain, like that one described at the beginning of my speech. You have the sensation that the whole is closed by velvet, black velvet. You have the sensation that you perceive not only the color, but also the structure of the blackness. I know it's very complicated to describe this phenomenon, but it's a scientific explanation. It's a sort of counter-projection of your photoreceptors in your visual system, counter-projected outside. It's very complicated to explain, but it's explicable in scientific terms. So it's so strong, the perception that you are at night now, not at 3 past 3 p.m., that also if a bird enters inside the space, is unable to go outside until the next day, rest prisoner inside that space. And when you look at the blackness and you perceive the structure of your visual system projected on the void, it's like a revelation for you, because you are inside an eye, an architectural eye, looking at sky. So you are inside the mechanism of vision. You are seeing the mechanism of vision from inside. James Turell said frequently, see yourself, see. I'm introducing the works by James Turell just to introduce also the Roden crater project, just to explain what kind of installation you'll find inside the Roden crater. Augmented thanks to the presence of nature of Roden crater. This is another very seminal work by James Turell. The name of this kind of installation is space division construction. So James Turell is an artist, but he explains his work with the terms of an architect, because he worked with the space. So have you seen before, in the James Turell installation, there is no object, there is no focus, because it's impossible to focalize something in James Turell installation. There is no image. So it's an art does by nothing, but it cost $21 million, a work by James Turell. This is a space division construction in which there is a receiving ambient space, the space of the beholders, and behind the hole in the wall in front of you, there is another space of the same dimension of the receiving space. But for us, it's impossible to see behind the hole, because there is the light produced by the emitting space that give to us a sort of blindness. So we perceive the hole closed by a glass, like it happened also in the sky space. In the sky space, in the horizontal surface, in the space division construction on vertical surface. This phenomenon is described in scientific terms as a creation of film color, the creation of the empty space of a sort of film which we perceive as solid, but there is nothing. So the first one-man exhibition devoted to James Turell occurred many, many years ago, the beginning of 70s in New York. And a lady, believing that there was a surface, entered inside the emitting space, and she broke her arms. So the fate was very strange, because the lady was the wife of the judge of the Supreme Court of Washington, and there was a legal fight between the museum and the lady. At the end, won the lady, sorry. But this gave a lot of publicity to the exhibition by James Turell, but also suggested James Turell to insert inside his installation always some points of reference or some bodyguards to avoid some legal problems. So when you enter inside James Turell installation, you don't perceive at the beginning when you walk inside, but at eye level, there are some points, black points, very small black points, painted in the lateral part of the installation. Consciously, you don't perceive that point, but unconsciously, your visual system perceives an alert, trigger warning, please don't go behind, before, pay attention. Just to show you some installation, but there is another aspect of James Turell language that I like to share with you, the use of the so-called Ganzfeld. I don't know if you know this word, strange word. If it is from German language, Ganzfeld. It means total visual field. What is a total visual field? Imagine you as an astronaut, like George Clooney in the film Gravity. Do you remember, have you seen that film? George Clooney is in the space, lost in the space, and he has no reference around him. So for him, it was impossible during the movie to perceive the distance between the things, a planet, a star, an object in the sidereal space. If there is no reference around them, it's impossible to estimate the distance between the things. So the perspectival projection and perception is impossible. So when you enter inside an artificial Ganzfeld, it happens something like this. I tried to photograph, but it's very complicated to photograph a Ganzfeld because you perceive the Ganzfeld, but it's not objective. It's not actual, not real. This is the photo of a Ganzfeld in installation by James Turell. You are like in a field of fog. For you, it's impossible to perceive what is in front of you, at your sides, over to you. It's like you are in a field of fog in a place filled of snow, for example. But if you turn your body of 180 degrees, everything reappears. Turn your body of 118 degrees and everything disappears. No image, no focus, no object. There is nothing. There is our perception. In general, the works by James Turell are located in an area by the art historians of minimalist art. I agree and not agree about this definition, but probably you know something about minimalism. There is minimalism in literature, there is minimalism in music, Terry Riley, Philip Glass, other musicians. But it's very complicated to put inside a category James Turell art. So this is another sky-space space division construction mixed with the Ganzfeld at Gagosian Gallery in London, and are very strange places in which, in general, the observer, the beholder, rests for several hours in a sort of mystical abstraction of the mind. Also, my students, when they visited with me, James Turell installation, they rest in silence. It's a very strange thing that they rest in silence for more than a minute, but for an hour, 2 hours, especially when they visited with me the Roden crater. They rested in silence for several days. So I introduced with some paradigmatic works the idea of James Turell about the use of light, artificial light and natural light. And now I'm introducing you to the project, Roden Crater project. James Turell designed it from the beginning of the 70s. He received a grant from Guggenheim Foundation, and he used the money from the grant not to visit Europe, to visit the Museum of Europe, to go to the studio of famous painters in the ancient Europe, but to buy fuel for his airplane and to fly over the USA to find the place for his utopistic project. He was looking for a crater, a volcanic crater. I'll explain after why. It's very strange that an artist was looking at the time for a very natural place in which locate his installation in a permanent way. But he was evicted from the Mendota Hotel by some rich American persons who decided to transform the area of Santa Monica in which the hotel was located in a resort. Between this rich person who evicted James Turell from the Mendota Hotel, there was also a famous singer, Barbara Streisand. I don't know if you know her. So after several decades, James Turell vindicated this situation because Barbara Streisand tried to buy a work by James Turell, and he decided to didn't sell the work to Barbara Streisand. So in this photo, the third wife of James Turell, shot several months ago, is depicted our rendition of the project, because I and my group at University Iuav of Venice many, many years ago, when I visited the first time the exhibition of James Turell, decided to collaborate with James Turell. So when I became professor at University Iuav of Venice, the first thing I did was to write to James Turell and to ask him, please, may I work with you? And after several weeks, he answered to me, yes, please. For me, it was unbelievable. So I decided to go in USA to collaborate with him, reaching him in every part of the world in which he was working. And we began our collaboration. I decided to reconstruct this project, the project I'm trying to describe to you now, through a digital model in which it will be possible to visualize not only the spaces located inside this volcanic object, but also the celestial phenomenon involved in the perception of the space. So we are looking at these photos. Kyung Kim Lee, who is shooting the photo, with Jim, who is working on his desk. He draw with hands, or he don't use AutoCAD, he don't use a computer. In the Flagstaff Ranch, in which they lived for almost 20 years. And in a Savage impression, the plans we have designed for him. This is the place in which is located the Roden Crater project. It's the painted desert. So the name becomes from the fact that in that area, it's very rare that rain. So the colors are pure, like they are painted by someone. And it's full filled with a lot of volcanoes, 300 volcanoes. So it's a volcanic field. San Francisco volcanic field. The name San Francisco depends from the fact that in that area, they were very active during the 18th century, 17th century, 18th century, and 19th century, the monks or the priests of San Francisco order, San Franciscan order. So the Roden crater is located in that point, so very far from the other volcanoes. Some of them are sleeping, some are quiescent, some are not active. So the Roden crater is a non-active cinder volcanic object. The shape is defined by the geologists strombolic because its shape is like a cone. Probably you know the terms which describe the geology of the volcanic object is Latin, Japanese, and in native Indians, Hawaiian terms. So the area, the linguistic area in which there are more volcanoes. So if you have you been in the USA? Have you been at Grand Canyon? Some one of you have visited the Grand Canyon. So it's 1 hour and a half, sorry, from Grand Canyon, driving with your car toward east. So it's a very remote place of USA or Arizona. So James Turell decided to use the grant from Guggenheim Foundation to create a permanent place for his installation. So he decided to buy the crater. In USA, it's possible to buy a volcano, and also the area around the volcano. So there are a lot of 3 kind of fences around the volcano, the Roden crater, just to protect the place from the visitors. So this is a photo I shot when I arrived for the first time at Roden crater. When I arrived in Arizona for the first time, I met James Turell in a steakhouse. He was eating a stick, and he saw me and began to laugh because I arrived with 2 cameras, telecameras, a recorder, a digital scan, and he said to me, please do the experience of the crater, and after becomes to study the crater. So I abandoned every mechanical tools, and I've been in the crater for the first time in my life, doing the experience of the volcano. So now I'll try to describe a part of the project, but I think it's very complicated because the only things to understand the Roden crater is to do the experience, to be there. But it's very complicated to enter inside the Roden crater. The list of the person who was asked to enter inside the Roden craters began from the beginning of 70s. So there is a long list of persons to enter inside the Roden crater. In general, may enter inside the Roden crater the person who studied the project. So I and my students, we entered a lot of times inside that place, and also the donors, the private donors or the donors, the foundation decided to give money to James Turell for this project. So I shot this photo from the ruins of the house of Roden family, the family who was historically the owner of the place. So you are looking now at the Roden crater from its most photogenic side, from the south side. And you see that around us there is this amazing land. When I arrived in Arizona, I understood that I was on a planet because it's a place at manifest geology, the desert. In general, the desert as our place at manifest geology. So some photos we shoot during our stay, during the years at Roden craters. Sometimes they are I was very lucky in this case, but we shot photos during the winter time when there is snow. Everything is white, everything changed in the perception of the space, in the perception of the installation inside the Roden crater, and in general of the landscape. And the perception of the project depends how you arrive at that place. For example, with the airplanes, with James Turell, so from an high altitude toward the lower land around the crater, or if you come with a 4-wheel drive vehicle, for example. So James Turell used the money from his grant to fly over the USA to find a place like this. He remembered that when he was very young with his father, going from California to the Grand Canyon, he crossed this place. And he decided to stop with his airplane inside the basin of the crater. It was very dangerous. It was very complicated because the landing was complicated, but takeoff from the inside of the crater with his airplane was more complicated. So it is another story. We have no time to describe how it happened. So also the colors are very important, because the colors tells to us the history, the geological history of that place, the levels of transformation of the lavic materials through the era. So James Turell was looking for a place like this, a place in which host inside the inner parts of the crater in a permanent way his installations, sky-oriented, oriented toward the places in the sky in which may appear some object, luminous object, for example, 2 times in a year, every 10 years, every 20 years, every 100 years, every 3 million of years. It's impossible for us to understand a project which go beyond our idea of time, the human scale of life. But for James Turell was not important. Some of the installation enter in contact with the celestial objects now, other in the future, probably in a moment in which there will be no human life on the planet Earth. When I wrote the first catalog about James Turell, I asked one of the astronomers who worked with James Turell. At this project worked a lot of astronomers and laboratories, USA laboratories, NASA in premise, and the Naval Observatory of Flagstaff, the most close city to that area. And in his essay, in the essay of the astronomist who wrote for my catalog, there is the final part of his essay, very moving for me, in which he described the interior tunnels and the installation, sky-oriented, designed with so fine attention by James Turell and his fellows, after some cataclysm and after the destruction of humanity on the surface of the Earth, every structure, subterranean structure, becomes clear at the light of the moon or the light of the sun. And he imagined a solitary wolf crying to the moon. So probably only the wildlife survived to us, probably in a future not so far, I think. So I asked James Turell to reconstruct a digital model of the Roden crater and all the area around. You have to imagine that this model has to follow the movement of the terrestrial surface of 1 centimeter here toward Seattle. There is a movement, natural movement of this area. And we recorded, we oriented the model toward the movement of the Earth's surface, and consequently also respect to the celestial vault, of which we constructed a digital model. The model of celestial vault we constructed for James Turell has decided to represent only the stars described by Ptolemy in an ancient book he wrote during the Alexandrian period. Of course, it was impossible for us to represent all the stars of the sky. They are infinity. So we decided to represent some stars, a lot of stars, believe me, that are described by Ptolemy. So it's a sort of homage to Ptolemy by us, by James Turell. So it's a model we construct, a digital model, Earth-oriented, but also sky-oriented, following the movement of the celestial vaults, or better, of the stars, the apparently movements of the stars in the sky, depending from the equinox precessions. You know probably that the Earth rotates around its axis, but this movement is also described a double cone. This phenomenon is described by the astronomers as a precession of equinoxes. So the shapes of the interiors chamber designed by James Turell is in accordance with the object in the sky he has to receive as projection. So there are tunnels, there are rooms. So in the legend, you read south space, east space. It depends from the orientation of the space, which part of the sky they collect inside the chamber. But other are related with their function. So probably now you count 16 chambers, but now are become 21. In the meantime, they are become 21. So it was very complicated to work in the desert, alone with my fellows, my researcher, my PhD student, and also with my students, who become with me sometimes to do survey of the places, of the installation, to do measures of elements, and to do also the experience of the crater. My students, when they come back to Venice in Italy, they were transformed in our idea of what is a project. Because from the Roden crater, we learned that when an architect project design a place, have to pay attention also not only to the landscape around him, but also above him. The celestial landscape is very important. When I worked with Tadao Ando at the beginning of my PhD, I discovered that Tadao Ando did naturally this approach. Every object, every aperture, every windows in Tadao Ando's architecture is sky-oriented, with different approach. Is more related with Shinto's and Buddhism tradition. But there is some sensibility in Tadao Ando and in James Turell toward the sky. And it's not by chance that James Turell and Tadao Ando worked together for a project, the House of Shadows in Japan. I don't know if you have been there, but I suggest to go. It's very interesting. It's an homage to Junichiro Tanizaki, Junichiro. Okay, we designed the model, a physical model, a digital model. In this cross-section, you look at the different altitudes of the ambience, interior ambience, interested by the cross-section. Probably you see long tunnels oriented of almost 9 degrees in different directions. I explain why in a few minutes. And the first space I'd like to show to you, I have a lot of slides, but I have to select some of them for you. But I have the slide for the entire project. But just a hint for you, just to give suggesting you the interest, the suggestion for more research about this project. This is the south space. Before to explain the south space, when we arrive at the Roden crater, we are hosted in a lodge in which there are all facilities for a resort. We have water, we have a fireplace, we have a kitchen, we have our beds, very comfortable beds. So for us, the permanence inside the Roden crater was very funny. But the first place, the first installation the visitors will find at the end of the project will be the south space. In this axonometrical view, exploded axonometrical view, you see the parts of the project involved in the design of the south space. And you recognize probably an hemispheres with some parts of the hemisphere omitted, which remind in you, probably not in all of you, but in some of you, of the Jai Prakash Yantra, one of the most amazing projects designed during the 18th century in India, in Jaipur, by Maharaja Jai Singh. It's an architectural... Okay, very fast, very fast. Okay, this is the orientation of the object toward the celestial pole, the celestial star. Now it's the polar star, but you know in the future it will be not the polar star. And some frames from the animation we did for James Turell. But I go very fast, sorry. Just to explain how we use the digital tools to represent the stars, for example, in a geometrical way. I show to you the the workplace during the construction of the south space. The method used by James Turell is a special league named silicon bronze. It's a mixture of bronze and silicon just to resist to the high variation of temperature between the night and the day in the desert. It's almost finished, now attending the interior part of the hemisphere. James Turell surveilling the work. There is also a telescope in that place in which it's possible to see only for one person the circumpolar stars around the polar stars. The man with his back toward the camera is Paul Bustamante, is the architect who is working here, is a native Indian with some strange Italian origins. This is the metallic structure before the marble. This is the use of marble inside. This is an instrument to measure the altitude of the celestial object. It's very complicated now to explain, but believe me, it's an instrument to measure the altitude of the stars during the night or the position of the sun during the day. The other ambient, very interesting, is the east space in which there will be 2 swimming pools, a very strange shape, in which it will be possible to perceive from the opening toward east the twilight arc, the change of colors in the horizon of east of the east part of the desert, changing from the violet toward the yellow and toward the dark blue. The astronomer of NASA explained to me that the phenomenon depends from the projection of the shadow of the Earth from the sun, who is coming down in the other side of the space, on the atmosphere. It was a revelation for me. The opening of each windows is designed according to the position of the sun. This is the opening, ortive opening in astronomical terms. And this is the interior of the 2 swimming pools. The temperature of the water was 30 degrees, 23, 30 degrees, it depends from the period of the year, in which you will be in the water when you see the sky space. So your perception to levitate is augmented by the presence of the water. So in front of you, you look at the horizon at 4 o'clock and you see the light. When you look over to you, you'll see black. What is the truth? Only a ray of light passes through the fences in the opening, the aperture in between the 2 swimming pools at the equinoxes. And this is the long tunnel. The entrance of the long tunnel began from the sun and moon space, in which there is a monolith with 2 faces, in which is projected on one side the sun at summer solstice, at beginning of summer solstice, and in the other side the moon at the lunar major standstill. This is the representation of the long tunnel, 300 meters long, with a lens in the middle who put in focus the image of light at major lunar standstill. I'll show to you the alignment and very quickly the monolith, the images inside the crater, in which is in the sky, is projected on the Earth. The long tunnel with the baffles, metallic baffles, who worked to dim the light. I did some photos, but it's very complicated to photograph this event. And the upper room from which passed the image of the moon. This is the moon at major lunar standstill, in which the full moon, during the beginning of a cycle named Saros, start his series. And the moon is perfectly centered in the opening of the sky space, but the opening of sky space is not circular. It's elliptical. What is the truth? What are you looking or what you are perceiving? This is the opening. It's not a circle. It's conic. It's an ellipse. But you know probably, because you are a student of fourth here, that conics, ellipses, and circle are projectively analogous. Also in this case, this is the opening outside. I have no time to explain everything. I show to you the presence of the biggest sky space in the world inside the Roden crater in the south pole of the crater. I go very, very, very fast. And in this case, when you lay down on this strange bed around the opening of the sky space, oriented in a cardinal way, you lay down and you look at the sky over to you, the sky becomes a dome. Not far from you, but at several 18 meters from you. So you have the sensation to fly. But you are not in a room, you are in the open air. So this sensation is very strong. And the first thing to do is to block your body to the bed because it's very strong. I tried to photograph, but it's impossible because it depends from your personal experience, visual experience. Okay, this is the reconstruction of the phenomenon. And very quickly toward the end of my speech, sorry I've been too long in my explanation. I show to you the last photos of the last installation designed by James Turell. I think no one has seen before. You probably are the first students. Is a space devoted to Arcturus, the constellation of Arcturus, from which James Turell projected from the sidereal space the sound of the stars projected on the Earth, on the surface of the Earth. This is the workplace. It's a very huge workplace. Everything is powered by solar panels and wind, so it's an ecological structure. So I'd like to show you the interior. This is the construction of the big hair to collect the sounds from the sky and project on a place in the center, in the focus of this big hair, which is possible to listen the sound of constellation. So it's not finished, but I think it's interesting for you to see the workplace. So just a few information about the project. I described in a very brief way the designer, the owner, the donors, different structure involved in the project. Some photos of our first exhibition about James Turell at Venice after the exhibition moved toward UNA, the Museum of Light in Germany, at Guggenheim Museum and other venues. The three books we wrote about the project, one in Italian, I think the most interesting one, James Turell, Geometria della Luce, Roden Crater Project, but it's out of print, so it's not publicity for me because I don't bring any money from these books. The second one is published for another exhibition in Sicily, and the third one at Museum of Light in Unna, in Germany. This is my equipe who worked with me at the project. Some photos of me with other colleagues during some discussion with James Turell, and the musician who wrote the soundtrack for the exhibition are musicians from the jazz ambient milieu, Maria Pia De Vito, Michele Rabbia, who lives here in Paris and works a lot in the jazz club of works a lot in the jazz club of Paris. Maurizio Giri, Hugh Warren, and Anya Lechner and Ivan Harset. The CD will be edited by ECM, the label by Keith Jarrett, Pat Metheny, and other artists of the jazz venue. Some photos of the laurea honoris causa we tributed to James Turell several years ago, and now he's an architect, like you and me, like you and me. And I'd like to say goodbye to you with a quotation from Immanuel Kant. Probably you know this quotation because you have done the high school, so you studied philosophy. I think it's very interesting, the last part, in which Immanuel Kant described this correspondence between our feeling, personal, interior feeling, and what is around us, the starry heaven above me and the moral law within me. Probably a relationship that in our world, it's lost, probably. Okay.
Thank you. No. No. Thank you, Agostino. It was very interesting. We are sorry for the time, for the short time. Do you have some question? Vous êtes qui? No question? Yes?
No, I just wanted to know, is the project published somewhere? I mean, on the website of the uni, of the Venice Uni?
I don't listen.
Is the project published somewhere, like on your website, or I mean, if we want to see it more?
No, there are some books we wrote, and you have to hope that James Turell arrived with his wall exhibition, the same we had in the Guggenheim Museum in New York, also in Paris. Now in Paris at Gagosian, I know that in Paris there are 3 Gagosian galleries. One is outside Paris.
Okay.
I visited in November the exhibition. I think there is the exhibition now. Still there is an exhibition of James Turell. It's a very small exhibition. The installations are very huge, but the installations are not so complete. So the project, the Roden Crater project, is not available. You can try to visit the website by James Turell. There is an area devoted to the Roden Crater in which there are our drawings, our reconstruction, our animation, or there is the book. If someone of you are interested in the books out of print, please don't write to me, because I don't send the PDF to you. Have you understood? Nice.
Other question? Non? Okay. Je pense qu'on peut clôturer de manière générale, enfin pas de manière générale, avant l'ouverture de l'exposition, mais on peut laisser Nathalie Bréard, que vous connaissez très bien, qui est notre directrice de la pédagogie, dire quelques mots à propos du workshop en général, de l'expérience. Merci Nathalie.
Bonjour, thank you sir. Non, alors moi je suis juste venue 10 minutes sur la fin de cette présentation, donc j'ai pas tout compris, mais je me suis dit mais quelle chance vous avez de pouvoir bénéficier de ce type de présentation, que l'école mette en œuvre les moyens, c'est pas moi, donc je peux dire que vous avez de la chance que l'école fasse tout ça. Pour vous qui n'êtes pas cette année en échange international, peut-être vous l'étiez en L3, mais bon, la majorité ont plutôt tendance à partir en M1, et donc il y avait l'idée aussi de vous proposer ce workshop dit international ou européen selon un peu les invités d'une année sur l'autre, pour vous offrir une expérience un peu internationale, vous mélanger aussi en dehors des groupes de projets ou voilà, rencontrer d'autres étudiants peut-être, rencontrer surtout les invités chaque année qui ont tous des profils très différents, complémentaires ou pas. Enfin voilà, ça vous donne un peu plus qu'une semaine, un temps fort pendant votre deuxième cycle, et on espère que vous appréciez tout ça. Du point de vue de l'administration, on voudrait remercier très chaleureusement Francesca Contrada et Emma Filipponi. Pour nous, de notre point de vue, ça s'est hyper bien passé cette année. On espère donc qu'elles voudront renouveler l'expérience parce que c'était la première fois avec ce binôme d'enseignantes. Voilà, je pense que vous serez amenés aussi à nous faire un retour, quand je dis nous, un retour à l'école de manière collective un peu sur ce temps particulier, savoir s'il y a des choses qui vous ont spécialement plu ou des choses qui vous ont un peu questionné, enfin voilà, pour qu'on puisse ajuster d'une année sur l'autre. C'est une expérience qu'on a mise en œuvre de mémoire depuis, je pense, 2013 ou 2014. Il y a eu différents formats, différentes durées. À une époque, ça a occupé le week-end. Donc, j'espère que vous appréciez le fait qu'on vous a libéré le week-end pour avoir un rythme un peu plus facile à soutenir, même si ça reste intense. Enfin voilà, il y a eu plein de formats différents et on espère que cette édition-là, 2025, vous a plu, que vous allez en garder quelque chose sur la durée, que vous avez fait des belles rencontres, voilà, tout ça. Merci.
Merci Nathalie, merci beaucoup. Est-ce qu'on avait quelque chose à montrer?
Les photos et puis...
Ah oui. Si abre. Vuoi dire qualcosa?
Sì, vorrei.
Vai, dici.
Ok, vai. Alors, merci beaucoup Nathalie. Alors, c'est un peu le moment de la clôture avant l'ouverture de l'exposition. Du coup, on a toutes les photos de cette semaine, qui en fait, ça a été un peu plus longue d'une semaine, mais du coup, effectivement, pour moi, Emma, je pense que ça a été hyper intéressant d'organiser ce workshop. C'était la première fois, mais c'était super intéressant. On vous mettra à disposition les photos. Du coup, on a passé des bons moments avec vous, avec toutes les présentations des invités, avec les montages de l'expo qui étaient un peu, toujours un peu. Mais je pense que, en fait, j'espère que vous êtes vraiment amusés pendant cette semaine avec nous. Et même si vous êtes fatigués, je pense que vous devez être fiers en fait de ce que vous avez fait, parce que tous les travaux, je pense qu'ils sont quand même d'une qualité incroyable pour avoir été faits juste une seule.
Merci d'avoir joué le jeu.
Oui, prends l'autre. Mais surtout, oui, du coup, effectivement, merci à vous. Avant de passer juste la parole aux invités, je voudrais quand même remercier l'école. S'il vous plaît, juste pour... je voudrais remercier l'école pour nous avoir donné la possibilité d'organiser ça. Tous les services en fait, qui nous ont accompagnés pendant cette organisation. La matériothèque avec Jérôme qui nous a beaucoup aidés, qui a participé.
Qui est là aujourd'hui, parmi vous, avec Clément et le Fab Lab à côté.
Et Clément du Fab Lab qui nous a accompagnés aussi, l'audiovisuel avec Mohamed, les services, disons, moyens généraux, et Bruno aussi pour l'organisation, l'informatique, pour la célérité.
On va rajouter les crédits d'impression aujourd'hui, surtout.
Bon, je pense qu'il y a eu des petits couacs, mais pas vraiment des choses insurmontables. Du coup, c'était... Je pense que c'est très bien passé. Je ne sais pas si tu veux dire.
Non, en tout cas, on vous remercie, vous aussi, parce que vous avez quand même joué le jeu. Donc vous avez fait, on va les voir ensemble, mais vous avez fait des très belles choses. L'expo est très intéressante. Je pense que ça vous a demandé de l'énergie, du temps, et ça on en est bien conscient, mais le résultat, c'est très sympa et tout est très beau. Donc merci à vous aussi d'être là et d'avoir suivi les choses de manière assez importante.
Ouais.
Voilà.
Je pense que vous pouvez vous applaudir aussi, un peu quand même. Alors, je vais laisser. I want to ask our guest to come and tell something about this week and your experience with us. Et je vais aussi remercier les moniteurs qui ont beaucoup travaillé avant le workshop et aussi pendant la semaine. Et l'idée, effectivement, c'est que tous ces travaux vont faire quand même partie d'un catalogue qu'on va publier. Come here, all of you. Maria.
È tutto da. Sì, prego, salite. Tutti.
Please,
prego.
please.
1, 2, 3, 4. Olga, Arthur. Vi lascio il microfono.
Che dico? Say something, please. Okay, thank you very much, Francesca and Emma, and also to this university. It has been a really pleasure to come here and to work with you. I think it was a very interesting experience. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think the organization was amazing, and also the monitor. They really gave us a big help, at least to me. I don't know yours. And yeah, my feeling was that the energy in general in this school is very powerful. I was surprised and amazed by the students working with me, like the enthusiasm, the creativity, the curiosity that you have. It's very precious and inspired me a lot, and I will bring it with me to Berlin. And I mean, it was a precious moment to think together about sustainability, about some challenges that me and the others brought to you. And yeah, I hope that these questions will also inspire you as architects or teachers or whatever you want to do in your future, and that we put just a little seed that maybe will bring some consequences. And yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. The energy in the school is amazing. Our workshop was related to energy and carbon, so I really could feel it. Anyway, no, I really thank you, Emma, Francesca, and all the students, all the other colleagues, because it's been really a great experience. It was great to exchange visions and different approaches with you students, different approaches between us. So it's been enriching, I think, everyone. And really, I hope you enjoyed this opportunity to learn something different, okay? And I hope you will bring this experience into your future. And I'm speaking also on behalf of Elena, who's not here, but she's with us, like the heart. And I invite you all to come to Turin in case you want to visit us, to join some projects, to see our research center. And okay, you already have it.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think in our workshop, we really wanted to give you the possibility to get your hands dirty. And I think this happened. And maybe just thinking about that design is not just about a space. It can be in the details. It can be in the material choice. It can be in your creativity in putting together all this information. And I hope you will continue and maybe develop products for the Materiotech. Start these also internal collaborations, which is amazing. You have this amazing institution, and I hope this can be the first step towards more material explorations.
Bonjour, on repasse en français. J'ai pas grand-chose à ajouter. Merci à toutes et à tous d'avoir participé à cette expérience. Merci Francesca et Emma pour cette opportunité de partager ensemble. Voilà, je pense que je suis assez d'accord avec Toto dans le sens où vous nous avez beaucoup inspiré et je pense que c'est ce qui nous a permis aussi d'amener l'expérience jusqu'ici. J'espère que ce fut réciproque. Et puis il me reste à vous dire à bientôt et j'espère qu'on appréciera tous découvrir les travaux de chacun dans l'exposition et que vous pourrez nous expliquer ce que vous avez fait en parallèle de nous pendant qu'on avait les mains dans la boue. Voilà.
Donc on se retrouve dans la salle XP pour ouvrir officiellement l'exposition. On vous demandera d'être un peu à côté de vos expositions pour nous expliquer un peu, enfin nous, mais surtout aux personnes qui n'étaient pas là tous les jours, de qu'est-ce que vous avez fait pendant la semaine et qu'est-ce qu'ils sont les rendus. Oui, c'est ouvert jusqu'au 12 mars, l'expo. Voilà. Mais là, on vous demande de nous illustrer, un petit peu qu'est-ce que vous avez produit et qu'est-ce que vous avez exposé. OK ? Tout de suite.
Merci.